Hi there and welcome to another episode of Ecom at One. And today's guest is Jessica Costa, founder and CEO at Badassery. How you doing, Jessica?
I'm awesome, Richard. How are you?
I am also extremely awesome. So that's a great start. So Jessica's coming all the way from Los Angeles today. We're just doing the weather check and it all seems to be good in Los Angeles at the moment.
Yep, sure is.
So eCommerce Badassery, what a name, eh? You tell us all about it. And also, I know there's quite a tie in there with the sort of female entrepreneurs. You know, why are you so passionate about supporting female entrepreneurs as well?
Yeah, for sure. So I actually started eCommerce Badassery a couple of years ago by accident. It was right when MailChimp and Shopify broke up. And there were a lot of entrepreneurs that didn't know what to do. And I just happened to be in a lot of e-commerce, like Facebook groups, because I just loved being around that energy, right? Like I knew I wanted to do something for myself. I just didn't know what that was. And I just started talking to them about Klaviyo because I had already been using it for about 2 years or so in my day job. And then all of a sudden, I started getting these messages saying, hey, I'm on Klaviyo. I'm really struggling with this. Can you help me? Or I just switched to Klaviyo and my emails are going in the junk box. Can you help me? And I was like, okay, sure. So I did.
Yeah.
And I immediately fell in love with the process of working with that first handful of clients.
Yeah.
And I remember I was, sitting on the couch talking to my husband, kind of telling him about it. And he was asking me, are you tired? Because I was doing this on the side of my day job. And I was like, no, I'm so energized when I get on a call with them or I come to do their work. And we really started talking about the lack of education in the space for that middle e-com entrepreneur, right? So you've got a lot for that super beginner person, right? Where you're kind of selling them the dream of having a business. And then you have a lot for the corporate space or the really, really big, if you have VC funding and all of that. But like, there wasn't a lot for the person in the middle. And he was just like, well, they need you. Are you going to start a business? And I was like, I think I am. So that's kind of how eCommerce Badassery happened.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people I talk to kind of start their businesses by accident. It's the best job I've ever had. Being in retail for 20 years and working at a 7-figure e-commerce company, being the only employee for the first 3 years, like I have a good amount of things I learned along the way that I can share. So it's been a joy. And now, I work one-on-one with clients. I also have a podcast. It's been the best job I've ever had.
Yeah. I think I love stories like that where you sort of, you're learning something for yourself or for a company to start with, and you just get so into it. You really enjoy it. You see a real need for it and a real passion for it. And then obviously then you sort of get asked, oh, can you help me with this? And it's like, okay, but it wasn't my plan, but ultimately, why not? And that really resonates with myself. Yeah, that was sort of how I started doing this. Exactly the same story, just it was with SEO as opposed to email marketing. Yeah, I was like, it was like, no, I'll go on then, sort of thing. It's like,
I loved what I did and I didn't necessarily love who I did it for. And I just didn't know where I was going to end up or what I was going to do. But it's just so funny how I didn't immediately see the connection of this is what you do already. You can help other people do it too. And it took someone else on the outside to be like, hey, Jessica, like, duh, why aren't you doing this?
So, and you work primarily with female entrepreneurs then?
I do. I think I just naturally attract them. And there's not a lot of females in the space teaching this or doing what I do. Right. And one of the biggest things I heard, and I'm by no means like a man hater or anything, but
I wasn't going there.
But like, there's a lot of bros in the e-commerce space, and they're like, hey, run Facebook ads and tomorrow you're going to be a millionaire. And anyone who's been in e-commerce knows that's just not how it works. So I think the people I serve were just really excited to have someone who was going to like give it to them straight, really teach them like, hey, do these things, teach them analytics. And there's not really a lot of other people doing it.
Yeah. No, That's great. That's great. That's great. So what would you say is one thing you see e-commerce businesses, one thing that's hindering e-commerce businesses on a regular basis? Obviously, you work with a lot of businesses now over the years.
Yeah.
Do you see that sort of consistency in issues and errors and things and mistakes that they're making?
For sure. And it kind of, there's two, and it depends where you're at in your business, right? When you're just starting, if you're bootstrapping, you're a solopreneur, generally they spend so much time tinkering with all the little things in the background. Oh, I got to adjust this on my website, and I need to do this. And no, you need to show up. You need to get on social media. You need to partner with people. You need to get eyeballs on your business. It is not if you build it, they will come situation. So I always see that. And then the other thing is those who have been in business for a while, and even if they're making a lot of revenue, they're not necessarily making a lot of profit, and they don't understand their analytics. They're not using their analytics to make educated decisions about where they should focus their energy and what they should focus their time on. And they're just kind of throwing spaghetti at the wall, a lot of shiny object syndrome. Oh, this guy's doing this, so I have to do it. And I just encourage everyone to be a bit more intentional. It depends where you're trying to go. Look, if you're VC funded and your goal is to create this huge business that you can exit later for a big lump sum, then that's what you do, right? And you're not profitable those first 3 years. But if you are building a business because you want it to, fund your life, take care of your family, give you freedom, then you need to be more intentional, build the brand, and be profitable sooner. Basically.
Yeah, I think so many people lose sight of that. They see all the orders going out the door, they see the big 10, 20, 30,000 square foot warehouse, the employee count, this, that, and the other, and all these big numbers. But hang on a minute, how much is left at the end of a month for you as the business owner, your family, making sure that you are first as opposed to quite often last, which is quite normal, isn't it? So So moving on a similar vein then, so obviously, great couple of things there. But if we laser focusing on email marketing, which I know is your superpower, what will be, some of the things that you see there that e-com stores make mistakes with?
The biggest mistake is they're not sending them, or they're not sending enough.
That's pretty good. Yeah. Pretty bad.
Yeah. It's crazy. And, it doesn't seem to matter where they're at in their business, how long they've been in business. Email is like this mystery that they just don't know how to handle. But in all seriousness, I think the mistake people make is that they treat email like a sales channel instead of a communication and relationship channel. And we have to remember that there is a human on the other side of that email address. Now, yes, you should expect ROI. And honestly, you'll get the highest ROI from email than you do from anything else.
Yeah.
But you can't just show up in people's inbox and say, buy from me. Buy from me every day. Like if you had a brick and mortar, you wouldn't stand outside and say, buy my thing. Like that'd be super off-putting.
Yeah.
Email's the same way. So when you are approaching email, I'd rather see you do it with your customer hat on instead of your CEO or your marketing hat.
Yeah.
What does the customer need to hear from you? How can you add value to their life? How can you bring joy to their inbox? And it's funny because I think the bigger your business gets, the more you look to these large corporate companies like a Target or something like that of how they are doing email. Don't do email like them, right? Yeah. They have millions of subscribers. They can afford the churn that their crappy email marketing is going to get them. But if you're a smaller business with a smaller list, you can't afford that.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the biggest mistake I see.
Yeah. I love that sentence you said, bring joy to the inbox. I like that.
Yeah.
Isn't that what it's all about? Just bringing joy in general, maybe.
Yeah. I mean,
buying from brands that, entertain, that bring that something different rather than just a sell mentality.
Right.
You're bringing that passion, purpose, the people behind the brand. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. I mean, more and more we're learning that people buy from people. So just be human and be people. And communicate with your customer that way. It's going to go a really, really long way. And I know a lot of smaller businesses, you know, they don't, oh, I don't want to be the face of the brand. It doesn't have to be you, but you need some sort of personality that people can relate to and connect with.
So, okay. So the guys that are listening to this episode, they're like, okay, fine. All sounds great. But the reality is I want to make money. You know, I want, you know, that's the reality of it all, isn't it? It's like all this template and this sequence and, you know, and do this and say that. But what would you say are some very specific things that companies can look at, do, implement that will really turn up the revenue dial?
Yeah, for sure. So number one is get more intentional and use the data to drive your decision making. When you are trying to decide, you know, when should I email, who should I email, what should I say, all of that stuff, remember that every action the customer does or does not take is them talking to you. It's them telling you something. If they do or don't open the email, did they click on it? Did they not click on it? Did they buy what you were featuring or did they buy something else? So we really need to tune in, pay attention, and test a lot of things. Here's the secret. There is no secret. There's no hack. It's testing, it's learning, and figuring out what resonates with your customers, being of service and making it more about them than about you. Yeah. So start looking at each, just, you know, here's the thing, right? I see a lot of people will do this with their ads, but they won't do this with their email, but it's the same. So if you have an ad that isn't performing, right, you're going to look at each step individually. So are they stopping the scroll? Are they looking at the ad? If they are, then that means your creative is probably good. Yeah. Did they click it? If they didn't, your call to action probably sucks or something is off in your message. Yeah. And then if they do click and don't buy, then there's probably a disconnect between what you were offering and what the customer saw when they got to your website, or your website sucks. Yeah. Your email is the same way. Did they open it? If not, then it's probably a subject line or the time of day or when you sent it or the audience you sent it to. And we can talk a little bit more about segmentation. Same thing. Did they click it? If they didn't, well, something was off in the email. So look at each of those steps separately and test them. Figure out what your customer likes. I'll give you an example. In my previous day job, I knew a regular, just like fun, not a sale email, just a promotional, hey, check these products out, something like that. If my subject line was more witty and suggestive, it got more opens. Yeah. But when it was a sale, they wanted it straight. 20% off your purchase until X day, right? Clear over clever in that sense. So you have to figure out what works for your customer. But if you want some like 2 really quick wins that will just like immediately generate you more money without having to test a bunch of stuff, because I know we're all impatient, right? Is to 1, resend your email to the people who didn't open it the first time. 99% of the time, this is going to generate you more opens and more revenue. And it's like just something that we don't even think about.
How easy is that? How easy?
So, yeah, I mean, it's like the easiest thing ever. Some platforms will do it automatically for you. So that's even better. Otherwise, just clone it, create a new subject line, resend it, you know, a day or 2 later, depending upon what you're promoting. And then second, overcome common objections before your customer has a chance to have them. And this is especially powerful in your abandonment email. So if you put product reviews in there, and you can get real fancy, make them dynamic if you want, based on what they were looking at, but you don't have to do that if you don't have time. Yeah. Otherwise, just generic emails about the reviews about the experience of shopping with you, right? It was really great. It was fast shipping. Like, pull those out and throw them in your emails. And if you don't believe me, you can set up an A/B test, right? Where you test the content and it'll split it 50-50, one with reviews, one without, and then see which one converts better.
Love it. I think it's so simple when you say it like that. You know, the amount of people that are listening now, I think if you're not resending to your unopens, you could probably, I don't know the number, but double your open rate, triple your open rate is I know that's possible, and you can set that up automatically in a lot of systems. So you're actually doing the same amount of work, but getting double the open.
Yeah, who doesn't want that?
That sounds good, doesn't it? That sounds good. Okay, that's fantastic. So maybe talk about frequency for a minute. So, I know it's going to depend on a few variables, but what's your sort of go-to equation, if you like, of how often, frequency that you should be sending emails to your lists?
Yeah, at a minimum once a week.
Yeah,
is what I like to say. In general, the larger your product assortment, right, and the bigger your email list, the more emails you can send.
Yeah.
If you are a one product store, you probably don't need to send more than one email a week, right? But if you sell men's, women's, and children's clothing, right, those are probably different avatars, different customers that you can target, and you can send more emails. So think about it like that, but also think about what you can realistically be consistent with.
Yeah.
Don't send 3 emails a week for 2 months and then ghost your subscriber list. So
You're going to listen to this episode, go and log into your email provider and do 2 emails this week and then forget about it.
Exactly. So
isn't it? Consistency.
If you are not being consistent right now, start with once a week. Obviously, if you have special promotions going on, or if you have a new product launch, or it's Black Friday sale, something like that, then obviously you're going to send more emails during that time. But generally, start with at least 1. 2 to 3 is often a sweet spot for most brands that I see.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of companies that send emails every single day.
Yeah.
What really matters is what expectation have you set with them from the beginning?
Yeah.
What can you be consistent with, and how engaged are they, right? Like, so I shop Steve Madden. It's a shoe brand. I get an email from them every single day. It's annoying, but I don't unsubscribe because I have FOMO. What if the shoe that I want?
How many pairs of their shoes do you have?
A lot. I also just have a lot of shoes. Yeah. I'm always
on the VIP list, aren't you?
Yeah. I mean, I used to sleep in my new shoes as a little girl. So shoes are kind of my thing, but I don't unsubscribe because what if the shoe I want is going to be on promo, or there's something new that I really want. So it's really knowing what your customers can handle from you.
That's great. So I think another on a similar vein is, I think a lot of people that will be listening in, they're thinking, right, do you know what? We really need to up our game on the, on the whole email game. But the reality is they've probably got a lot of lists and a lot of people sat that are very disengaged, that maybe they're not sent an email to you for some time. It's not really been sorted out in terms of, splits, the different lists and the frequencies are different based on their intent. So what would you say about re-engaging those disengaged people that are on lists? What sort of strategies can you recommend to that?
So it kind of depends where you're starting. So let's pretend you've already been sending emails and you've been consistent, but you have this group of people that are unengaged at this point. So for those, if you're in that situation, here's what I would do is 1, sit down and write a fully text-based email. You want it to look like the marketing manager, the CEO sat down at their desk to write this to the customer. And remember, it's a human on the other side of that email. When it comes to your subject line for this, you can try something that's a little bit more cryptic, like, hey, quick question, first name, or you might want to say, hey, last chance before we unsubscribe you. It kind of depends a little bit on your brand and what your voice is like. And when you sit down and write that email, hey, we haven't seen you in a while. If they're people who have purchased from you, maybe you're going to say, hey, here's what's new. If they're a VIP, hey, don't forget about these perks. Like, you just want something to get them to open the email and click to say, hey, no, I want to stay here.
Yeah.
And what I would say with those people is make 1 or 2 attempts to re-engage with them. And if it doesn't work, just move on.
Yeah.
People are naturally going to churn. They don't need your product anymore.
Yeah.
Oftentimes you'll get more bang for your buck if you just focus on the people who are engaging.
Yeah.
If on the other hand, you haven't emailed in a while, and you've just kind of ghosted your list, there's a couple ways you can approach this. One is you can wait until you have something really powerful to say. So if you have a new product dropping, a new collection, and you can kind of start breadcrumbing, like don't just start blasting them crazy with this stuff, but you can start breadcrumbing. Hey, I know it's been a while. This is what we've been working on.
Yeah.
So you can take that angle.
Yeah.
If maybe you're a smaller business, maybe you don't kind of have new products, maybe you're a solopreneur, you have a really small team, just be straight up honest with them. Hey, look, this is what's been going on. Yeah. It was 2020. I'm homeschooling my kids. I'm trying to run this business.
Yeah.
Like it's okay to just be real, because they're all feeling it too.
I think that's fantastic. I think you should pause now and go and rewind the last 2 minutes. There's so many, depending on where you are with your e-commerce store, there's a lot of great takeaways there. But I think bottom line is just be personable, speak from the heart. It's speaking to a human being, share what's going on in the business. Say, sorry we've not reached out to you for a while.
Yeah.
I can literally understand if you don't want to hear from me, and you never will if you click this button or,
right.
But however, we've got some really cool stuff going on at the moment that I'm sorry to say we've not let you know about, and we'd like to tell you now. And we've got this coming up, that coming up, a bit of intrigue in there. I think quite often a lot of people abandon lists or just send them the same old, whereas that's like a pattern interrupt to go, this looks like they could be planning some real stuff because we've not heard from them.
Right.
Lots of great stuff in there.
Yeah. And I think honestly, a lot of us just overthink this. We just overthink email. Like we just think we have to have this like big crazy strategy, and not to say there's no strategy behind it, but if we've learned anything, it's that like people just want to see the real stuff.
Yeah.
So like, it's okay. You don't have to be perfect.
Yeah.
I am definitely not perfect, and it makes my clients feel better. Like, oh, okay, no one has it together. Sweet. I'm normal. Great. Thank you.
Yeah, and I guess on a similar vein, review emails. So sending out, requests and, those follow-up emails after an order. What's your opinion on that, or any sort of strategies there and the review emails?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I'm so glad you asked this, because surprisingly, I see a lot of people don't ask for reviews, or they don't even have a way for the customer to leave a review. So very important. If you're not already doing this, I prefer a platform like Yotpo or Stamped, where the review form is right in the body of the email, right? So the customer doesn't have to like click through, find the review place. Make it super easy for them. I mean, the other most important thing is the timing of the email. For those of you listening, Richard, have you ever gotten a review email before you even have the product?
Yeah, that's happened a few times. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Not a great experience, right? So please be very intentional. You want to make sure that they have the product in hand and have at least had time to use it, right? So think about your product and what is that normal lead time before they actually use it and have something to say. So, if it's quick, maybe you do it 14 days after the sale. You have to think about your lead time to get it out of the warehouse. What is your shipping like? Take all of that into account. Yeah. And then in terms of rewarding people, so, typically we would maybe give a small little discount on their next purchase if they left a review. I'm not 100% sure on this. I have this feeling like I remember reading this or hearing this where reviews that Google will use on your ads, right? Like that review extension that they decide whether or not they're going to put it there. I think if you incentivize them, like they're not, they won't use them. I could totally be making that up, but maybe just go do a quick Google search on that. I think it's okay to incentivize in the beginning, especially, right? Because you just like need to get reviews. But if you have a rewards, if you have a rewards program, you might be better off awarding points for leaving the review versus a discount on their next purchase. So just something to kind of think about.
Yeah. That's great. That's great.
And then aside from all that, just be simple, clear over clever. Just be really simple, straightforward. Please tell us what you think about this product.
Yeah, I think send it the review email the next morning is definitely not forward when the courier's not even arrived, and obviously you've not had a chance to sample the thing, try your thing.
Right.
And if it's a lawnmower, you've not cut the grass yet, or whatever it may be. That timing, absolutely critical, isn't it? But I could, I've had it. It's bizarre. It begs belief. I have had emails the next morning. How did you get? It hasn't even arrived yet.
I know. Have you even shipped it? I don't know how it is yet. Yeah.
Not even seen it, let alone used it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So obviously worked on a lot of client campaigns, a lot of your own campaigns when you were sort of client side. Maybe talk us through some of your sort of favorite campaigns that you've worked on that have generated real results for your clients and for yourself.
Yeah. So there's kind of two main ones that stand out to me, and it's really just like a system that I continually implement. And that is how I treat a new product launch and how I treat like a large promotional series, like a Black Friday weekend or something like that. So let me talk about, the holiday stuff first, because it's almost upon us. I can't believe that it's almost here. I want you to remember that if you are not showing up in people's inboxes, somebody else who sells a product similar to you is. So if you're not already being consistent with email, please do sit down and do that for these big holidays. And think about, if you were the customer, how would you want to be treated during this time, right? I don't know how you guys shop for the holidays, but for me, like, I'm planning ahead. I'm thinking about, I've got a budget for these people. My husband has a ginormous family, so we're very intentional of who we have to buy for and all of that good stuff. I'm doing research ahead of time, and I'm trying to get a sense of where I'm going to go to get the items that I want for the people I need to buy for. And a lot of consumers are like this. So you want to start teasing them. And this is the same for a new product launch too, is you want to start teasing them a week out, a few days out, kind of depends. And a lot of people will say, well, I don't want to reveal what I'm going to do because people are going to wait to buy. They're going to wait anyway. They're waiting anyway, right? Even if you are not in the US, there's a lot of stores that, Black Friday has kind of become a thing everywhere, even though the US is the only one that celebrates Thanksgiving that weekend. So because the consumer has come to expect it. So don't be afraid to kind of tease it early on. And then I want you to think about, like, I always lay it out in a calendar. Okay, these are the dates of my promotion. I'm going to tease it a couple of days ahead. I'm going to launch to my VIPs a little bit early. Then I'm going to launch it to everyone. I'm going to have a couple of resends in there. We could talk about what that looks like. And then we're going to have our last chance. And then you might do the fake, like, extended, right? Oh, the demand, or the discount. Yeah, or the discount code was broken. Sorry. Like, yeah, that's when people do that, that's all fake, but that's okay. So you can pull some of that in too. And when I do the resends, like, you're going to have the launch and the last chance, right? Those are pretty simple, basic messaging.
Yeah.
When I do the resends is when I start to dive more into the psychology behind why they may or may not have purchased yet, right? So in the case of holiday, maybe I'm going to focus on treating themselves, giving themselves a little bit of something. Maybe I'm going to overcome objections in there. Maybe I'm going to change the messaging based on what I know about them. So it kind of, it depends a little bit, but that is essentially the framework that I use. Yeah. And it's really similar for the new product launch too, right? So I'm definitely going to start teasing that in a product launch specifically. And you can do this with a promo too, is even for the people who are already on your email list, I will often ask them to qualify themselves as someone who wants to hear more about this thing that I have going on. And here's the great thing about that is once you get them to say, yes, send me more about this new collection or this new product or this promo, you can talk about it more without annoying them because they've told you they want to hear about it.
Yeah.
So I will get them to self-segment and tell me they want more. And then the people on that list get early access. So this is great to grow your list from social or wherever else you're doing marketing. Tell them, hey, sign up for this. You'll be the first to know. And then the same thing for your existing people. And then I do the same thing, right? I'm going to have a lot of resends. I'm going to hit on all the different reasons why someone might buy this particular collection. I'm going to hit on all the objections that they're having. Why wouldn't they buy from you? Overcome that right away. And same thing, breadcrumb, launch, resends, last chance kind of deal.
So segmenting, absolutely key then.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think that's where, I'm just thinking of some of the things I've come across over the years, but I think, brilliant. I think just breaking it up, segmenting it. I think these things actually, when you break it down like that, it sounds quite simple. And I think when you've done it once or twice as a e-com store owner, a marketer, marketing manager, whatever, it's getting those first templates, if you like, down and work. It's not that. It's like everything that we talk about. When you break it down. Of course, if you're in a position where you're not sending anything, or you're starting to segment and sending your first version of that, it's night and day, the difference of returns. So I think that's brilliant. So I think with your sort of crystal ball in hand, what would you say is some of the things coming down this next year or two that you would see as the future of email marketing? What are the sort of things that maybe some of the platforms are going to be doing, or some of that, we touched on segmenting, but really, okay, what's that next level of thing that's coming down the line with email marketing, would you say?
Yeah, so there's a couple things that I want to touch on here. And one, let's talk about a not so great thing. So if you haven't heard, iOS 15, right? So iOS 14 rocked the marketing world. iOS 15 making some changes, starting to target email. So the user will have the ability to opt out of email tracking with iOS 15, which means you won't see whether or not they opened the email.
Yeah.
And you won't have their IP address, which is how most people figure out where someone is, right? So maybe you make location-based segments if you have brick and mortar also, or maybe you are targeting people based on different weather of where they live, whatever it is. So this is, I can't remember if it's going to developers in September or if it's going to users in September, but either way, it'll be here in time for Q4. Yay! Which means for the next couple of months, you want to start collecting as much first-party data as you possibly can. So if location is important to you, start updating those customer profiles with where they're located. Yeah. Create a manage preferences form with the things that you want to know about them and let the customer tell you. Yeah. Remember, if it's your first-party data, no one can take that away from you.
Yeah.
So you really need to build that up and start really testing things like your subject lines, because, hey, if you don't have access to open rates, how are you going to know? Right. Yeah. So start learning now what your customer likes. And then 2, going forward, your click is going to be that lowest metric that you have to really determine if someone likes what you have to say. So start testing your content, figuring out, what do people like? Do they like text-based emails, or do they like really overly pretty designed ones? Yeah. Do they like clever calls to action where you maybe talk to them about the outcome they're going to have when they buy your product? For instance, a CBD brand that I work with, right? It's like shop calm or calm awaits, things like that. Like, what is the result that they're going to get? Or do they just like buttons that say shop now? Yeah. Start testing that. You don't have a lot of time, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant.
And then also what I would love to see everyone start doing is segmenting more. But there's a particular way I want you to do this. And I don't want you to feel like you need to do this for every email you send, right? If you are someone who hasn't been emailing regularly, but you're listening to this episode and you're like, all right, sweet, I'm going to start sending an email every week. I don't want you to feel like you have to create these segments every single week, because it's going to be a waste of time. But about every quarter or so, I will sit down and I will create, I already have the segments set up, right? They're dynamic, so they automatically get full. But when you sit down to create these, I want you to think about the group of people who engage with your emails, but haven't bought from you yet. Then you have the group of people who maybe they have bought from you in the past, but it's kind of been a while. Where have they been, right? Typically they buy every 3 months. Now you're on month 4. Like, where are they at? Then you have those people who maybe shop with you a lot, but they don't spend a ton of money. So like, how do you get them to spend more money? So you create those segments, and then you sit down every quarter or so and create an email specifically for them based on the action you want them to take. So I usually make these text-based because I want them to think someone just like sat down and wrote them a letter, and craft those specifically for them. So for the person who engages all the time but hasn't made a purchase yet, maybe I'm going to give them a limited time offer, right? 48 hours to make their first purchase. And I know I'm not saying that you need to discount all the time. We don't want to train our customers for that. But that first purchase is the hardest one to get.
Yeah.
And once you get it, it becomes easier to get the next one, and that customer becomes more profitable over time. Yeah. So it's okay to just do like a one-time, first-time purchase thing.
Yeah.
Maybe you have, like I said, the person who shops a lot, but their AOV is like way lower than your average order value. Maybe you can cross-sell them something based on something they purchased in the past. And then for the person who hasn't shopped in a while, start talking to them about what's new. And that's how I like to approach segmentation. Obviously, if you have a natural break in your product, I'll use Old Navy as an example. They have men's, women's, and children's clothing. I don't have any kids. I don't have any nieces and nephews yet. So if they send me stuff about kids clothing, I'm not going to buy it. I'm just not. So if you have a natural break like that, you can segment that way, but don't get too bogged down with that in the beginning, because you'll just spend a whole bunch of time tinkering. You'll get these tiny segments with no people in them, and it's just a waste.
Yeah, some brilliant segments there. I think that's real actionable takeaways there for the guys that are listening. That I think if you're listening, I've said this a couple of times on this episode, but just I know from experience as well, those things are just so going to have a real benefit to the bottom line. Just some of those segments, tweaking them having them in the first place, but making sure now you're focusing on creating them while you can, because you might some of those segments, getting people's birthdays or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Getting them now when because iOS 14 has caused a real ripple in our industry, and 15 no doubt is not going to be any different. It's coming down the track. So preparing for that now. I think that's
but please know that doesn't mean email is dead.
No,
right?
No.
A lot of people are going to start to, I'm not going to bother with email because, no, that it's not the case. It's just like ads, right? Yeah. Ads still work. They're just really hard to track. It's really hard to see the data.
I think when things change, the way I look at it and the way our listeners, I want them to think about it, when things change, that's an opportunity, because people will abandon it, and there's opportunities then. As people give up, people fear that change, so they do things the same way they did, and they don't necessarily work. Embrace the change, focus on figuring stuff out. That's where you're going to excel as an e-com brand. So I think it's getting in front of that now, knowing that it's happening, knowing that in 6, 8, 12 months, yes, you're going to be hearing a lot of people moaning about it, whereas you could be like, that smug sort of little grin on your face. Yeah, we saw that coming, and we did this. Yeah, you might not have every answer to everything that's coming down the line, but you might be 80% in front of most people that have done nothing, or they're doing
exactly. And I've seen it with ads. You know, I have an ads person that I work really closely with. She works with a lot of my clients. And, you know, it was a little rough there in the beginning while she was kind of figuring it all out. But now some of the ads are performing better because it's cheaper.
Yeah.
Because people are dropping out and they're not doing it. So the competition is lower.
So last couple of questions. Tools. Now, we always like to sort of try and squeeze a tool or two in. You know, that can help, you know, improve that, in this case, email marketing. You know, what tools, any specific tools you'll recommend to add to the tool set?
Yeah. So in terms of email marketing platforms, my number one, hands down favorite is Klaviyo. It has the most robust feature set for the price, even more than some enterprise platforms that I have used in the past. And they are actively improving the platform, right? Because there's nothing worse than a stale piece of tech that has like a bunch of feature requests that go unanswered.
Yeah.
Hate that. If you're on a platform like that, like it's time to go for sure. And another one is, if, you know, not everyone loves Klaviyo, OmniSend is a pretty close second. They are missing some specific features, but I've played around with them. I am technically a partner of them as well. And I would say just pick a platform that is robust, that you can grow into. Don't get hung up on the price because you're going to make your money back very quickly. And I would say use as many of their internal tools as you can at first, right? Some people will use things like Privy for forms, for sign up forms and things like that, which is fine when you start getting in the swing of things. So you have a little bit more flexibility there. And then I also love the website reallygoodemails.com for design inspiration.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Really. But I will say, don't get too stuck on that either.
Yeah.
Focus on the content more than how you present it.
Yeah. No, I hear you. Definitely. I think the shiny template is not the way forward, is it? More, you know, it's the words and the way that they are personalized and resonate, rather than a very shiny $97 template from a market.
Exactly. And it's the same thing with e-commerce websites, right? Like there are some ugly websites out there that convert really, really well.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it has been an absolute pleasure speaking to you, Jessica. I like to finish every episode on a book recommendation. Do you have a book that you would recommend to our listeners?
So I don't read a ton of books. I listen to more podcasts than I read books, but I did recently pick up the EOS system, the entrepreneurial operating system. So I have all of them like in hand because I like real books that I can touch. I have them all. I just need to carve out some time to read them, but I've heard such amazing things and I have clients that use the system in their business and just some of the concepts and stuff. So I'm excited to dig into them.
I can give that a thumbs up. We use it in our business.
Oh, do you? Okay.
Operating system, it's an extremely good. Yes, from what's known Traction,
right.
Wickman, So I would give that a vote as well. So brilliant. Well, thank you so much, Jessica, for being on the eCom at One podcast. If the guys that are listening want to find out more about you, more about what you do, what's the best place to reach out to you at?
Yeah, so you can find me in all the places as eCommerce Badassery. That's my website, the name of my podcast, and my handle on Instagram, which is where I spend most of my time.
Fantastic. Well, it's been a pleasure. I look forward to speaking to you again.
Yes, thank you so much, Richard. This was awesome.